Hey, shalom everyone. It is Amachihu here. It's very good to be back with everyone. It's been a while since I have posted material. I'm hoping that there will be, of course, some consistency after this post. Hopefully, at least once a week. There's so much going on, as we all know. Um, However, with everything that is going on there, a lot of other important things happening behind the scenes, and so I am hoping now to continue with what I have been trying to just get us all to pay attention to. And that is, of course, many other issues um, that are to be covered here on, um, on this channel. But right now, the focus is upon, of course, the push of genetically modified organisms and genetically um, engineered organisms. So in this post, we're going to be looking at GMO seeds, which I'm referring to as the new neocolonialism. If we look at these photos in front of you, you see a picture in one hand of GMO corn seeds, and you see a picture in another hand of normal corn seeds. Now, of course, you see one of the pictures of the GMO corn seeds in a white hand. So, there's a little bit of, I guess you can say, um, allegory behind that, because this is, you can see that you'll be getting nothing from ingesting this material, but also, I don't have too many seeds that are blue, so there's something to be spoken to that, which we will look at as we go forward. So, what has been happening? So, the GMO lobby are showing signs of desperation. Once again, they're on the offensive with a major public relations push targeting East Africa, particularly Uganda, in an attempt to subvert African policy development towards their own narrow ends. Specifically, they want to remove the strict liability clauses and thereby avoid any responsibility from having to pay compensation for any damage that they do. They want to avoid labeling of foods so that African people are prohibited from knowing if their own food is genetically modified, which is what goes on with many products in the United States at this time. It doesn't have to be labeled. And of course, to avoid any punishment that African laws can impose. This is a real issue and a real problem. And, we wanted to look at some things that has been that has been happening on the continent and continue to happen. Now, in November of 2018, I believe it was, the Tanzanian government ordered that all GE maize crops stacked with the drought-tolerant trait that have been done on the field trials by the Tanzanian Agriculture Research Institute, known as TARI, be immediately stopped, right? And that the test remnants be destroyed. Now, this was very significant and important. This order came as a result of unauthorized use and release of the trial results by TARI, who invited members of the public, including this controversial fellow Mark Ness, who we will look at a little bit later, to view the performance of the GE crops. Now, many African governments' decision like this may well have sounded the death knell to Monsanto and the Gates Foundation, which funds a thing called the Water Efficient Maize for Africa, otherwise known as WEMA, WEMA, right? Project. Under those auspices, the DT maize has been developed for deployment in Africa. But despite that, there are things that are happening that are very disturbing. And I must say that though there are unfortunately one or two countries in Africa that are either not aware, right, of the dangers of GMOs, or they have sold themselves for a price, at worst, or false promises at best. And surely the information is available for what has happened in countries like Burkina Faso with GE cotton, which we're going to look at later. Now, one such country is Kenya. And as of just a few weeks ago, impressed by the demonstration of high yields, Kenyan farmers are urging the government to speed up the process of allowing them to access genetically modified BT maize. Now, let's look at what BT maize is. Now, BT or DT maize, however you want to refer to it, um, have been touted as climate smart. Now, one of the things we want to look at behind this whole thing of GMO or GEO seeds is this whole climate issue. And I'm going to do a presentation on this and why these two things are partners in crime to convince countries to accept the use of these destructive seeds, not just to the environment, but to our health. And so, what is it? So these are supposed to be drought-resistant seeds, for example, in case there's no rain, so on and so forth. And trials have been underway for years in South Africa, Uganda, Kenya, and more recent years, as we spoke about, as I just mentioned, in Tanzania and Mozambique. Right? Now, despite millions of dollars that have been spent developing DT maize by WEMA, by the WEMA project that I mentioned before, the Bill Gates funded project. The project is clearly failing, right? However, this has not deterred the biotech industry, particularly in places like Kenya, where the commercialization of the WEMA GE maize DT varieties, of course, has been rebranded as Tila maize, which is what they're now looking to push on the farmers, right? Now, scientists in Kenya, using what's called the biotech, I'll refer to as the biotech PR machinery that's brought to them by these companies, such as the Cornell Alliance for Science platform and elsewhere, are now calling for its commercialization in Kenya. And we know Kenya is right next door to Tanzania. And so in doing so, they're going to continue to perpetuate this falsehood out there of DT or BTGE maize as a tool to combat drought and to continue to make substantiated claims about it also being able to deal with the fall, right? FAW, repeatedly increasing yields due to the control of the fall, or cited by the probiotic machinery. It was the fall. Of course, the being able to fight off insects and worms and so on and so forth. Now, the truth of the matter, though, is that these claims from the biotech industry are nothing more than hype. And the commercial approval of the GT, BT, or DT maize in Kenya, though it may be a long way off, it's probably going to happen. Now, we can only hope that the Kenyan government will see through the false claims, and though conditional approval has been given for national trials in Kenya, pending results of a full and proper environmental impact assessment. EIA, may well support the findings of the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, and the South African government authorities. And so, instructively, the current dry season has been a huge failure with the WEMA non-GE hybrids. They've all dried up, while local open pollinated varieties have shown resilience to extremely hot temperatures. So we're going to look and see what happens here. Now, so far, only 3 African nations have allowed the cultivation of genetically modified GM crops commercially. This is Burkina Faso, Sudan, and South Africa. Only South Africa grows a GM food crop, whereas Burkina Faso has phased out the growing of GM cotton after a monumental disaster for farmers and seed companies. Currently, South Africa grows 3 commercial crops that have been genetically modified, mainly for herbicide and insect tolerance. Now, these 3 crops are maize, cotton, and soya. However, BioWatch South Africa, an organization interested in food security and biosafety in the country, reports that field trials have been carried out on genetically modified potatoes, wheat, canola, sugarcane, apple, eucalyptus, strawberry, sugar beet, tomato, and sweet potato. Now, the issue here is that genetic engineering, conferring tolerance in a crop plant on the WEMA or TILA project, it entails the genetic modification of a single or a few genes, right? Now, there are numerous genes that control drought tolerance in plants, not to mention the complex relationship that exists between genes themselves and genes and their external environment. This can be highlighted in a USDA report, which has identified significant challenges for the development of GNDT or BT corn, as it's called. Of course, I'm hoping that the Kenyan authorities are taking a deeper look at this report, because first, corn undergoes complex physiological responses to drought that can vary according to the drought's timing, duration, and severity, right? And these responses are going to be governed by a single gene, right? So if you genetically modify one gene or a small number of genes, it may not confer drought tolerance, right? And so secondly, the report will also state that the effects of drought stress on the corn plant may not necessarily be the same as heat stress. 2 completely different things is basically what they're saying to us. So, what do we have? We have a place like South Africa. It's the only country in the world where its main staple crop, maize, is primarily genetically modified, making up for around 80% of the maize meal consumed in the country. Considering that one of the key selling points of GM foods is that they will alleviate the perennial problems of hunger and food insecurity in Africa by increasing yields, what has been South Africa's experience, and what lessons can the rest of the continent learn? Despite more than a decade of GM maize use, food insecurity is rife, with over 46% of South African households experiencing hunger. 1 in 5 children in South Africa are stunted, and over 50% of South African women are now overweight or obese. Now, this is significant because, of course, that maize literally has no nutritional value. And some of us may realize this and some may not. A person can have food to eat every day. They can have 3 squares, but can still be malnourished or suffer from malnutrition. Many times we confuse malnutrition with starvation or famine, and they're 2 completely different things. A person can be obese and still malnourished because the food in which they're eating does not comprise, or does not have rather, of all of the vitamins or nutrients that their bodies need to function and be healthy. And so if you look at these numbers that's coming out of South Africa as of today, this is extremely significant, and it's also very troubling, right? So let's take a look at what happened in Burkina Faso. right? The hope is that governments on the rest of the continent can also learn from the disastrous BT cotton experience in Burkina Faso. Monsanto's GM insect resistant BT cotton was introduced commercially in Burkina Faso in 2008 and planted on 100,000 hectares of land. But after just a few years of commercialization, news began to filter into the international community that the project was a disaster. The GM cotton produced shorter fiber lengths and lower cotton fiber efficiency than conventional varieties. Burkina cotton companies began to lose international markets due to the poor quality, while farmers lost their incomes. As a result, in 2015, some 7 years after BT cotton was first introduced, a national decision was taken to abandon GM cotton and return to conventional cotton. No more GM cotton would be grown in Burkina Faso from 2016. Many expect this signals the end of BT cotton in West Africa, although Nigerian authorities are still stubbornly pushing the same failed technology, right? Now, again, this is a huge problem. And the term food security is almost a contradiction for any country on the continent if they're going to adopt any type of genetically modified seeds or plants or genetically engineered organisms into farming. And the issue here is that these companies, they desire to take control of the food supply. They also desire to take control of the farmer. Because any farmer that chooses to use any of these things, these seeds also will genetically modify the soil in which they're grown, which means that many times, depending on the product, no other seed except those GMO or genetically engineered seeds or organisms will be able to grow in that soil. And this, of course, will be catastrophic. And so as we continue, so companies like Monsanto use what can be referred to as profiting from an exaggerated success narrative. The power to shape a narrative based on faulty studies that overlooked important realities turned out to be good for Monsanto's bottom line. So they bring in studies that they know are not the case. They also come with the argument, the promise of higher yields. And who does not want higher yields? But higher yields for what and higher yields at what capacity is the issue. And so I wanted to use that for to go back and take a look at again BT corn, right? So BT corn is equipped with a gene from soil bacteria called the Bacillus thuringiensis, which produces what's known as the BT toxin. It's a pesticide that will break open the stomach of certain insects and kills them. Now, the pesticides producing corn entered into the food supply in the 1990s. And over the past decade, the horror stories have started piling up. And the problem with BT crops go far beyond certain BT-resistant insects. So Monsanto and the EPA swore that the genetically engineered corn would only harm insects. The BT toxin produced inside the plant, however, would be completely destroyed in the human digestive system and would not have any impact at all in consumers, they claimed. But alas, as they say, they've been proven wrong on that count as well, because not only is BT corn producing resistant superpests, research is now showing that the BT toxin can indeed wreak havoc on the human health. So we're going to make this part one here of this, and In part two, we will continue and we will look at the effects of the Bt toxin that has been found, um, being found in the blood of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that have consumed this corn. And so I look forward to seeing and being with you on the next post. And I hope this one has been extremely informative and will push you um, to learn and to be able to understand about what is happening and to stand up and ensure that this does not spread anymore in the continent where some of us are and are heading, or in the communities where we are. So, on that end, I say thanks once again, and shalom.